If you're looking for a place to hang out, figure out where you can take the next step in your dairy farming business, then you're in the right spot. Welcome to the High Performce Herd Podcast. Here we will inform you what you can do today to future-proof your business for tomorrow. A big thanks to our sponsors Fonterra, Idexx, Koru Diagnostics, TasHerd, Tasmanian Dairy Trust, Zoetis, NHIA, Datamars. I'm your host, Andrew Savage. Enjoy this episode of the High Performce Herd Podcast wherever you may be listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and jump on our Facebook group, the High Performce Herd Project. Hey everyone, it's just me in the High Performance studio today. And who am I? I'm Andrew Savage, and I'm the host of the High Performce Herd Podcast, also the creator of the High Performce Herd Project, which is what this podcast is going to be about. So today I'm just going to summarize the project to date, talk about what the project is actually all about and where it's heading. I'm a dairy farmer who moved to Tasmania about 8 years ago. I've been involved in dairy farming pretty much my whole life, either directly or indirectly. I was born on a dairy farm up in the top of the South Island of New Zealand. I've had experience farming there, and I also farmed in Wales for a short space of time. I'm a Kellogg scholar, and I'm a certified mindset and business coach. I'm currently also the field officer for TasHerd. So the project came about from problems I was seeing around the place, mainly in the overwhelm space for dairy farmers, sustainability issues coming at us left, right, and centre in the form of employment, technology, and the environment. So farmers are overwhelmed about the amount of information that is out there to really remain sustainable, and service providers and AgTech companies throwing all their salesy stuff at you. The solution is simple information for dairy farmers and the power of community in the form of the Facebook group, and the power of collaboration in the form of getting AgTech companies together to share their message with each other and look at how powerful their products are in collaboration with other people rather than working in silos and ramming it down dairy farmers' throats. So how does a project work? I've got a group of key stakeholders. I call it the cluster. That's made up of a group of companies, all with a vested interest in the sustainability of dairy farmers. And we get together, talk about our products and how they work together. It's across the space of a season. And we get that information to groups of farmers through social media, this podcast, and emails, newsletters, which I haven't quite got up and running yet. And who are these companies who have a vested interest in the sustainability of dairy farmers? Well, the companies I've got on board are Fonterra here in Australia. They have their farm source team. So they've got a diverse crew there, people all from financial backgrounds. We had Sam on last week talking about milk urea nitrogen. We're going to have a milk quality podcast coming up soon. We'll talk about that in the Facebook group. So they have been instrumental in helping me keep momentum going with this group. Datamars, Trutest, collars, we're using their collars. They have live weight technology. They've got stuff coming down the pipeline that is all going to help dairy farms. Idexx, milk pregnancy testing, BVD pestivirus. They've got a SNAP antibiotic test. They've got a huge suite of animal health tests and products that we can use to demonstrate how these work with other products. Zoetis are on board. They are pretty keen to share their selective dry cow story. Genomics is another topic that dairy farmers are talking about a lot, starting to gain momentum in New Zealand. I know it's been used on females here in Tassie for quite a while. So what is that all about, and how does that help, and how does it work with other tests on my farm? Koru Diagnostics we've used a fair bit early on in the project. They have developed the Staph Gold Staph aureus ELISA test. It'll tell you exactly where staph is in your herd. That's been pretty exciting. TasHerd, who I have a close affiliation with, they will carry out the herd recording and all the testing on the farm. Components, we process the samples for staph. and pregnancy, and generate reports around the financial return you're getting from each animal on your farm. The Tas Dairy Trust, they jumped in and helped us financially because there's a fair bit of admin involved here, and they have a farmer member on the board as well, Mark Griffin, and he is part of the cluster group as a dairy farmer and to represent Tas Dairy Trust. You can check him out on a podcast we did recently. He's a bit of a machine when it comes to somatic cell count, and he has done a podcast on how to take your staff on a journey to keep your cell count low. That was pretty valuable. NHIA is the National Herd Improvement Association of Australia. They have helped us with administration costs and will be helping distribute information to their stakeholders, which is all the dairy farmers and herd improvement operators around this country of Australia. There's another partner who I've just gained some traction with, who I've been on at for the whole duration of this project. It's going to be a bit of a game changer, and I'll touch on who that is at the end and what they are going to do. The project is a virtual project. So we have a real life dairy farm here in Australia, in Tasmania, but the idea is it's a virtual project that I can very quickly share information onto what's happening on that farm to a greater audience. So a virtual audience in a virtual farm. The farm is a spring calving farm here in Tassie. Farms in Tassie are very similar to a lot of farms in New Zealand and potentially Ireland and the UK as well, and South America. Spring block calving, just a little bit shy of 900 cows have collars on there at the moment. They is a family-run farm. Mum, dad, and the kids are there, along with other staff. They run a pretty good ship. It's some in-shed feeding. A lot of farms here in Tassie would typically feed around that 4 kilos of grain per cow, but predominantly pasture-based, some centre pivot irrigation, bit of dry land, very similar to what a lot of us are used to. The Facebook group, social media stuff, that's really how I saw the modern farmer consuming this information rather than a big pile of glossy magazines on your coffee table. So the Facebook group, Instagram, emails, Facebook group has been pretty cool. There's nearly 600 members in there now. So if you're not in the Facebook group and you're listening to this podcast, I suggest you jump in there. There's a fair bit of experience. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. So it's really cool, both from the sponsors and from the audience. There is about a 50-50 split, Aussie, New Zealand in there. There's Ireland. There's people from all around the world. So that's pretty exciting. When I put a post in there, it's reaching around about 300 to 400 people, depending on who's looking at cat videos and who's looking at Facebook. So the idea was that, you know, people are driving down the laneway in their motorbikes, or they're killing a bit of time while the cows are coming in, and you can see it out there. Everyone's snacking on information. So that was why I decided to go down that route as opposed to a physical on-farm focus, traditional focus farm. We have had, this is podcast number 10, and I've shared each podcast reel into that group. And we are looking at collars. I guess as the season has rolled on, the idea is that group, I'll be putting topical information and having discussions around things that are timely for this particular part of the season. So we started off, was really around calving. Collar installation was first cab off the rank. How do we put them on? How do we get them initialized? That type of discussion. We then went through calving and looking at collars and the data we were getting from calving and transition. That's when we had a couple of podcasts around transition times from calving to lactation and rumination. And that was with Brian Luckman and Lena Ferriman. And they were pretty popular podcasts. If you haven't checked them out, go and have a look. They're on YouTube as well. And we then moved on to heats and joining, which we're sort of still having a lot of discussion around. And there's been some really robust discussions around heat detection, mating twice a day, that type of thing around, really how do you use collars for heat detection, scratchies, no scratchies, etc. And it's cool to see the diverse range of responses to what people are doing in their heat detection. We had a few problems as we went along, and we're not hiding anything. It's warts and all here. So we made a bit of a mistake. On the farm, we installed a second gateway because the farm's pretty big and the gateway at the dairy doesn't take in the whole dairy farm. This particular dairy farm is joining twice a day. So we decided to put a second gateway in so that the farmers could see which cows were cycling during the day so that they had some sort of awareness around what the afternoon joining was going to look like. We threw up the second gateway on a center pivot down the farm. What we didn't do was put a SIM card in it or connect it to the internet. Caused a bit of a problem. The data was all going into the gateway. It just wasn't alerting us to the heats. So farmers screamed out, put some scratchies on. Initially, they decided to go without scratchies. So we put them on. And when I say we, I didn't have anything to do with it, but the farmers put scratchies on because they were a little bit worried about missing a whole lot of heat. So we've had a fair bit of to and fro with Datamars over in Ireland and in Europe around their tech teams, and they have been awesome at coming up with some solutions and really fast to identify what the problems were. The discussions there around collars and people having problems with collars mostly are human related or some external part of the environment, as far as a laptop computer or a PC, maybe they're upgraded overnight and shut off the system, all sorts of things in there that people have had. So really what I want to highlight is that if you jump into this Facebook group, you can see where other people have had problems, where you can ask questions about the problems that you're currently having. And there's some valuable stuff going on in there. And again, it's just to alleviate that overwhelm and to give you some solutions to your problems. Where are we heading from here? I'm going to do a piece around variable milking. That is the plan, a podcast on that and some discussion. We have a live weight system on the farm. So once we get the herd test out of the way, which is coming up tomorrow, maybe get 3 herd tests under our belt, we'll look at live weight versus production, some sustainability stuff there. Using herd testing information, what's the best way to get use out of your data? Milk pregnancy testing versus ultrasound. That's going to be a good one. Genomics, bring Zoetis into the fold, and whoever else is interested in genomics, it's another great tool that farmers have been dipping their toe in the water, or some have dipped their whole leg in. Selective dry cow is a good one. That's a big problem I see out there as far as farmers trying to use it or not use it. Some have gone in a bit half-cocked, made a bit of a meal of it. So what's that all about? We'll definitely bring that one into the fold. And what's exciting, the new partner that I mentioned early on, company called FarmPulse. FarmPulse is solving the problem of having multiple dashboards and multiple data points to look at on your farm. Imagine you've got center pivots, pumps, you've got milk meters, you've got herd testing data, you've got live weight, you've got all of these different things you're supposed to be looking at. They bring all of that into one spot. So we've just actually yesterday made a bit of progress with them. I've been whinging at them for pretty much since the start of the project. So awesome to have them on board. Really excited about what they bring to the fold. They also do a system called the Auto Grazer. If you look at my very first podcast, that was with Ollie Roberts and Pasture.io, they have developed a system where they can put GPS devices on a certain number of your cows and it will graze those paddocks for you in the Pasture.io system. So you don't have to enter grazings. And what that means is, well, you know what it's like. We all maybe do the plate meter and the cows probably graze 4 or 5 paddocks before we remember to put that into our software. So it takes that out of it. And what it means is that growth starts happening on day one in that system. So that's pretty handy. There's still problems I see out there that I'm going to keep trying to solve as we go through this project. Staff not on board with technology. That's a big one. I guess I see a massive growth in collars. Did a little survey in the Facebook group. There was 50% of people already had collars, about 25% saying not really interested, and of something similar saying, yeah, we'll put collars on in the next 12 months. What I have seen is farm owners or corporate owners putting on collars because they think it's the right thing to do. One problem I see here in Australia, supermarkets have been very generous with grants, $100,000 grants, farmers putting collars on cows, not really having that vested interest because they haven't had to pay for them as such. And without that vested interest or buy-in or real need for the return on financial input, sometimes you'll go to farms and there'll just be collars lying on the ground. It's like having bales roped off in the dairy, simple things like having your staff on board, getting the cords replaced, replacing them at the right length. Yeah, there's a lot of buy-in with technology, and that's something I see. Huge amount of waste, awesome technology going begging on dairy farms. So I'm going to dig into that. Farmers overwhelmed by choice. A fair bit of this, I think, is the fault of the ag tech companies. They sell their products rather than selling solutions to problems. Selling, like ramming a product down a farmer's throat, saying how amazing it is not really helping anyone. If you as an ag tech company can imagine that your product is a solution to a problem rather than the product, you're going to go a lot better with your messaging. So that's something that I'm helping ag tech companies with. How do you get that messaging right? How do you stop selling your product and invite your customer into your story? So that, but it causes overwhelm for farmers. 50 glossy magazines on the coffee table. Good for the fire, I suppose. So what is my call to action for this project? Jump on that Facebook group if you're in social media. If you're not, I'm happy, send me an email, send me a DM if you've got any questions, and I'll ask them in the Facebook group if you like. Sign into the website, www.highperformanceherd.com. There's a form in there you can fill out, and a lot of that information that's going into Facebook discussions, I will regurgitate into a email and I'll flick that out to you. I'm hoping that we'll have some special offers from our sponsors, information that will be very valuable down the track. So jump on the Facebook group. If you're a Facebook phobe, get on the website, sign up, or just send me a DM or a comment on this. And I'll with your email address if you like. Another option is also, I've actually just written an ebook. So if you're interested, I'll put the link to the book in the show notes for this page. But I've written a little ebook around staff and technology. Well, it's actually around leadership and becoming a good leader or a good dairy farm employer, and trying to recognize the aspects of your staff and how do you bring them along on a journey, take them on a mission when you engage this type of technology. And I like farmers say, well, what return on investment am I going to get from these collars? It all depends on you. There's no answer to what return on investment you'll get. If a collar or some system saying you're going to get X amount of dollars back for every dollar you spend, I feel like that is sales speak. And the more you engage with this technology, the stuff's amazing what it can do, the more return on investment you'll get. So the more prepared you are, the better organized you are, the more you bring your staff along a journey, the more money you're going to make from this. That's my opinion, and I see it out there time and time again. But if you just throw some collars on because you think it's the right thing to do, it's going to be a great heat detection tool, I can sack a couple of staff, unfortunately, you're not going to see the same return as someone else who's more vested. And that's where I'm really excited about FarmPulse, because they bring this to the fore, visualize it. It's just so easy. So that's my 10 cents worth in relation to technology, staff, and AgTech. Like I said, reach out to me if you're an AgTech company and you want to talk about what's happening in this space, and or vice versa, if you're a farmer and you've got something you would like us to cover off in the High Performance Herd Project, then feel free to reach out. Thanks again to the sponsors of the project. I couldn't do it without them. And I really hope as a dairy farmer, you're getting value from this and you'll get more value in the seasons to come. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe, make some comments on here on the Facebook podcast, and we will catch you with the next guest next week. Thanks for listening to the High Performance Herd podcast. Thanks to the sponsors Fonterra, Idexx, Koru Diagnostics, TasHerd, the Tasmanian Dairy Trust, Zoetis, NHIA, Datamars. Feel free to subscribe and review the podcast. Share it with your friends. The more, the merrier. Jump on Facebook, search the High Performance Herd Project, and you're very welcome to join the High Performance Herd private Facebook group. If you want to see a video of this podcast, jump on YouTube or www.highperformanceherd.com, where you'll see a link to these sponsors for more information on the High Performance Herd Project, which is a real-life dairy farm, spring block calving right here in Tassie. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.